God doesn't cause people to sin. He doesn't send pain. But it can never overcome him and defeat him. God can work through pain and bring good about in our lives because he's sovereign and king and glorious. He isn't some weak, impotent, backed into a corner kind of cheapo line manager who can't do anything because someone's kind of... This is God we're speaking about. You intended to hurt me. God intended it for good. Peter's writing this letter. And this is a great verse that highlights how believing people should read their circumstances. These trials have come from all sorts of unexpected sources, but the one great truth is that God is in control. And these have come so that. Joseph's life's one example. Do you know the cross where Jesus died is another? 30 years before this letter's written, Peter was preaching in Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost. And he talked about the fact that wicked men had put Jesus to death. And then he says, this all happened because of God's set purpose. What a mystery that is. That wicked men wanted to do harm. They intended it for harm. And God overruled it and intended it for good. For the salvation of millions of sinners in his world. It was a horrific act of sinful murder. And yet God planned it and used it to be the means of salvation. Is that not a mystery? Sin can never overcome God. God will always overcome evil and bring good from it as we trust in him. So the great hope is fixed here for you as a Christian believer, that when awful trials come, we can say, these have come so that ABC. God is not far away. He isn't at the mercy of events. He is in control, even when it seems like everything is spiraling out of control. So you're still with me? Christian believers, first of all, have a great hope today of a glorious future. But we also can know that God has a great design in our present pain. What a living hope that is. In Romans chapter 12, Paul there talks about being patient in affliction. We were thinking about it in January. And what he's really saying is, I don't want you to be bitter when trouble comes. I don't want you to try and throw it all off. I want you to be determined to submit to my gracious dealings with you and yet still shine for Jesus in this world. Be patient in affliction. Don't become embittered, but have the confidence that God is working out his purposes. And we could go to Romans 8 as well, couldn't we? Where Paul talks about all things working together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. All things, not just some things, not just good things, but all things working together by God's design. Let me just close with some very rapid fire comments here, because I know that there are some of you here who know what it is to go through difficulties. Let me give you some things to take away. I don't think the Bible, like maybe some people might think, and maybe other religions teach, that pain is some sort of unreality. The pain, in God's dealing with us, let's just be real. The pain is real. Peter says here, you may have suffered grief. There is a place for real tears, real sadness, and real heartache. That is not letting God down. We're very British, aren't we? And we like to keep a stiff upper lip and not show our weakness, vulnerability. Peter says, you may have had to suffer grief. You may have to suffer grief. So learn that pain is real. God sometimes exposes us to the kind of things we fear. And our response to that isn't to deny that we feel pain, but to accept the reality that pain is real, and yet to be able to say, I trust in him. The pain is real, but he knows what he's doing, and I'm going to hold his hand and walk with him. There's a point to it, and it's achieving something, it must be, that couldn't be achieved in any other way. Secondly, I want you to notice that the difficulties that we experience can be varied. If only we could say that there's just one thing on my plate. That would be great, wouldn't it? This is the lesson that God has got for me at the moment, and this is the only thing I have to endure. But it's not like that in life, isn't it? Life's complicated. And there's this thing, and there's this thing, and then when this thing finishes, there's another thing. And isn't it a great encouragement that Peter says, you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. It's not just one thing. If it's not one thing, it'll be something else. The difficulties are varied. Our trials can be physical, emotional, spiritual. They can relate to our finances, our relationships, our work. God, in his wisdom, weaves through our lives and the lives of others wisdom that we only see a part of. And our difficulties can be varied. I want you to see that Peter also says that the trials that we go through, comparatively, are very brief. Compared to what? Compared to someone else's struggles? No. Compared to a lifetime? No. But compared to what God has in store in the future for those who love him. So Peter says, in this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief. It won't last forever, and comparatively the time is very short. It isn't endless. It will come to an end. Paul says in Romans chapter 8 that he couldn't even find the words to compare his present sufferings with the weight of glory that was yet to come. It was like, if I put them on a scale, it would go, this is hard, but comparatively short. This is safe and secure and eternal. Was it not the writer to Hebrews who said, even if Jesus, that he endured the cross for the joy set before him? Exactly the same. It's hard and it's real, but comparatively short compared to the glory to be revealed.